As a drummer, it can be crazy hard to sound like the recordings I hear in my head when I'm playing live. But just like photos are edited and enhanced, drum sounds get manipulated a lot before they come out of your speakers. While there are a lot of ways this happens, today we're going to talk about one you can fix immediately, and it's going to make you sound like a pro. My name is Keith, and this is Common Sense Musician. Let's get into it. We're going to be talking about balancing the voices of your drum kit. And by voices, I primarily mean bass drum, snare drum, and cymbals, the main timekeeping voices of your drum set. But before we talk about balancing those voices, we need to define a common musical term: dynamics. Dynamics just refers to how loud or soft you play relative to what else is going on in the music. And for the purposes of this discussion, let's start out just by calling them soft, medium, and loud. If you've had formal musical training, you've probably heard the Italian words. They get used in formal musical settings like written sheet music or the band or the orchestra. The Italian word piano means soft. The word forte means strong, which we usually interpret as loud. Fun side note, the instrument that we call the piano, it's actually called the pianoforte because when it was invented, it was the first keyboard instrument that could play both loud and soft. It's also technically a percussion instrument because the strings are struck by hammers. So getting back to the Italian, we have soft and strong, which again, we usually interpret as loud. The other word is mezzo, which means moderately. So in addition to soft and loud, you can also have moderately soft and moderately loud. And in Italian, if you want to make something more extreme, you add isimo. So to be extremely soft, it's pianissimo. And to be extremely loud is fortissimo. And if you want to get even more extreme, you can just keep adding issimos all you want. Get crazy with it. I won't judge. Using these dynamic terms, we end up with 6 basic levels of loudness, illustrated on this chart. In drumming, a practical way to think about these volume levels is as stick heights. On a practice pad, I'd recommend the following, just as a baseline. For the very softest dynamic, 2 inches or less, just think ghost notes. You just want to lightly tap the drum head. Just like in spoken language, you don't want every single word to be exactly the same volume level, and you don't want to whisper when everyone else is shouting or be yelling at the top of your voice when everyone else is talking very softly. So the concept of dynamics is that they are relative to what else is going on in the music at any given time. Okay, now that we understand dynamics, let's talk about getting the drum kit in balance with itself. Wait, there's one more thing. Human hearing is actually a little bit strange because we don't hear all pitches and frequencies as equally loud. For whatever reason, humans evolved to hear lower pitched sounds as softer and higher pitched sounds as louder. Down in the description, I've linked a basic frequency sweep, and it's worth stopping and taking a minute to listen to that so you'll hear what I mean. Notice as the pitch gets higher, it gets almost painfully loud toward the top of the range of human hearing. So keep that in mind as we talk about playing drums in balance. When I'm recording and producing drums, I try to create a pyramid of sound using the lowest voices as the foundation of that pyramid. It looks something like this. Another way to think about this pyramid is like sliders on a mixing console or a soundboard. And if the given dynamic level is 10, then everything else is going to be set relative to that level. For rock music, or really anything with a backbeat, mine looks something like this. Remember that the 10 represents whatever the dynamic level is. So even if you're playing really softly, the 10 is still going to represent the kick drum in this example, and then everything else is going to be relative to that level 10. Probably the biggest issue I see with young or less experienced players is playing the kick drum too softly or playing the hi-hats really loud. I've also seen young players absolutely crushing the snare drum and not playing anything else hardly at all. Again, it's about balance. If you listen to your favorite recordings on good speakers, you're very likely to hear this concept. The kick drum is going to be nice and solid, snare drum in balance, and the cymbals are not going to be overbearing, even if it's open sloshy hi-hats or massive crashes. The legendary drummer Steve Smith, famous for his work with the bands Journey and Vital Information, he tells a story about this in his instructional video from the 80s. It's called Part 1. When he was just starting out with Journey, he was in the recording studio, and he noticed that the mixing engineer was always trying to turn up his kick drum and get the cymbals to sound softer in the mix. At some point, the thought occurred to him, I should do that in my playing. I shouldn't rely on the sound engineer to make those adjustments for me. So in your drumming career, you're not always going to be playing under microphones or with a sound engineer at the console, so you need to learn to make those adjustments for yourself and to play your kit in balance in a way that sounds great to your audience and really supports the music. And truly, this is one of the easiest and most effective changes you can make to sound like a pro immediately. This balance can change though, depending on the genre that you're playing. For example, if I'm playing in a jazz combo, the balance is going to look a lot more like this. Or if I'm playing something like bossa nova or samba, it might look like this. Of course, and as always, all of this is just my opinion, and it's the way that I like to think about things. You absolutely don't have to do it the way that I do. I just hope that this will help you start thinking about dynamics and the way you balance your kit if you haven't been already. If you've got a different way of thinking about dynamics that works for you, let me know in the comments. At the end of the day, your job as the drummer is to complement and support the song, the genre, the artist, everything else that's going on in the music. And to quote one of my favorite drummers and educators, Mike Johnston, if the ride cymbal's too loud, there's only one answer. Play the ride quieter, Johnston. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned anything today or there was something you liked in the video, go ahead and click that like button. And if you aren't already subscribed, click subscribe as well. I sincerely appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one.